All right, I'm back for another clip. And in this one, I actually made notes and I prepared. And the reason I did that is because a number of things have come together in my head. It started earlier today, and I just watched The Never-Ending Story, the movie. It's like an old childhood classic. If you haven't watched it, you gotta watch it. But it's better if you listen to this first, and then you watch it, and then you start to understand the movie from a very different perspective. And and so what I wanted to talk about was freedom as one of the longings that we all have inside. Hopefully, uh, I certainly do. And how as people we always have these two forces at play inside. One of them is a longing to be complete and safe, and the other one is the longing to be free and therefore not safe. So on this side of the spectrum, you have that idea that you want things to be stable, knowable, predictable, and for yourself to become this very complete version of yourself, right? Who is a capable person, who is loving, emotionally stable, and so on, socially capable, you name it. And on this side of the fence, you have something like, well, that sounds very stale, and I want, if you end the if you hit the ultimate end of this spectrum, your life becomes fixed and utterly predictable. And so the moment you get to that point, or close there too, your longing for freedom and adventure and unpredictability starts to pop up again, right? And then you go like, well, I want to be free. I want to explore. I want to feel like I, went out there and did something, right? Something different, and so on. And so what seems to be a part of the problem here is that we see those two things as opposed to one another. And I will venture my understanding of why I think that is, and it goes like so. So, see, we if we manage to get our lives together, and we have, say, a career and a partner, and good social standing and so on. I'm not going to go as far as to say that you need to be a pillar of society, but say that you get your stuff together. You get those elements. Your health is okay, and the rest of it. But somewhere inside you, there's this feeling, or there might be this feeling that now that you have all that, you're kind of bound by it, and that you would love to sort of throw caution to the wind and go on this unpredictable adventure, and just move to Nepal, or go and open a little Airbnb in Italy. I mean, there's this story that I read somewhere in the papers years ago about this couple who used to be both investment bankers in London, and they left all that to open a little bed and breakfast in Tuscany, for example, right? So is this idea of, what, this structured clinical life, screw it, we're going to go there and do this thing. And so so part of the situation that we have at hand is, I think, a misunderstanding of what real freedom comes from, right? So we think of freedom in terms of life circumstances. So that if you are, I also have a friend, for example, who's a consultant, and she was a consultant together with me, and she left that career to become a yoga and surf instructor in Bali, right? Like, amazing, right? Amazing freedom story. She was there last time I met her, some 4 years ago, doing pretty good, as a matter of fact. Much bigger sense of freedom, for sure. But also talking about how the realities of daily life start dawning on you after initial buzz about having sort of burnt all bridges career wise and going into this cool tropical adventure. And and once that ends, you get into the mundane day to day in a place like that. and and she was joking about how you know it was like 30% of all the students that came over to her camps and and took yoga and surf lessons, they all asked the same questions like, how did you do it? That's what I want to do. And like, everybody has that same story. Everybody has that same feeling of like, the day I'll leave my job and I'll go on that big adventure, right? And she was like, man, if I had a penny for every person who asked that question. And I was even joking about like, you should get a T-shirt of like, this is how you leave your job and become a yoga instructor or something along those lines. So, and so we have this notion that sense of freedom is embedded in certain life circumstances or things or situations that we can create, which is not entirely untrue, of course, right? Like some life situations are more free than others, to be sure. But we believe in this, and the punchline to the first story, the story about the couple who went into this adventure, left their corporate jobs, banking to become bed and breakfast owners in Tuscany, was that it turned out to be a nightmare because suddenly you find yourselves in charge of a little business in the hospitality industry, where people come in with like demands and expectations and nuisance and all manner of things, and financially it was disastrous. And it doesn't have to be that way, of course, but it turned out that like that breakthrough moment, right, was a thing. And we tend to think of these breakthrough moments like that, like after you cross that line in your first marathon or something, suddenly your life will like spin into this positive free or achievey thing, or you name it, right? And it just never quite pans out that way. I was even talking about that with a friend of mine who is an adventure photographer. He is literally, as we speak, trekking to Everest Base Camp, and they'll try to summit in the next couple of weeks. And he is the expedition's photographer and video maker. It's amazing. It's a dream. And now, because he's climbed a couple of other Himalayan and serious mountains before, he had been quite nervous in the past, in the days leading up to these expeditions. And this time around, I mean, he and I are Tai Chi training partners, and we've been doing the work with meditation Tai Chi for about almost 2 years now. A year and a half thereabouts. And the groundedness with which he left this time around came not so much because he knew he would summit, but because he knew that it didn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean he's not going to give it all. I mean, if I have my money on somebody making summit, it'd probably be this guy. But you see, he has summited amazing mountains before. Amadablan was one of them. It's like an 8,000 meter mountain, right? It's significantly more technical than Mount Everest. And he returned, and the mundane nature of his life, and the baseline, the emotional baseline and sense of freedom or achievement or completion that he had before he left, kind of reverted back to that exact same level. And he knows that now. He knows it very, very well. So leaving to this, he was motivated but grounded at the same time. And that's where these two extremes start to disappear. So part of the problem is that we are pinning our sense of getting freedom, or getting completion, for that matter. That's the other side of the spectrum. But we might. I mean, I've banged on too much about self-improvement as a thing versus self-realization. So, but let's look at the freedom side. You equally want that sense of freedom and openness, but you are hoping that it will be found in the circumstances in your life. And that might be true for a little while, just as on this side of the spectrum, when it comes to achievement and solidity, acquisition will bring you that little high, that little blip on the radar, but then you immediately revert back to your baseline because the sense of freedom is not to be found there. Now, the reason you think it will be found there is because the hopes and dreams that you hold before you become self-realized are generated by your personality, or in other words, by your idea of yourself, which is not really yourself. It's the ego, essentially, right? It's like that egoic construct that you have of yourself, and that egoic construct is the place from which these hopes and dreams stem. Now, that is a problem because you see the personality is fake. So that doesn't mean that it's an enemy or not you, that it didn't have its use, but it is fundamentally not you. So it's kind of hijacked your sense of self, and it's producing all these future hopes and dreams. They're always the same, mind you. They're very similar, right? Like they just take different little forms, but it's the same longings. And so you go out there and you try these things out, and they give you the blip, the high, and then you revert back to the same thing because the place from which they stem is fake, right? It's your personality, it's your persona, is this construct that you created to carry yourself around in the world. So if we go back to looking into what this persona is about, I've mentioned this in the past. It is essentially a construct that makes you be able to function in the world. So it creates your ability to interact with people so that you present a certain consistent front to the world. It is your ability to learn things. It is your ability to take care of your body, all these kind of things, right? So what you essentially do is because your psyche and your body and life circumstances are infinitely complex, what you do is you take a snapshot of what you see working in different circumstances, and you take snapshots of things that you see not working, and you create this person around you, this cartoonish cutout sort of like this one of the, these little figurines that you kind of cut out of paper, and you like in the cartoons you kind of stretch them. You create this cardboard cutout of what you think you are, and you call that you. And it's almost like you're almost like a method actor at first, right? Like you're trying these things out, and you ping off of the environment and off of other people. And the things that cause you pain, is like, oh, that's not me. And the things that get you the little goodies, the little rewards, approval, financial security, love, whatever, that's like, oh, that's me. Right, so you create this little cardboard cutout, this cartoonish version of you that you keep putting out there. The problem is because your sense of reward and punishment depend on playing that part right, you become what you could call a method actor. In other words, someone who really believes that they are the character, right? And you wear that character for so long, you wear that scaffolding for so long, that you eventually utterly confuse it with your sense of self. And that confused sense of self, that cartoonish version of what you think you are, generates hopes and dreams that says, this is what freedom is. And you go and chase those. The same as you chase the security, right? Like those are there. Yeah, when it comes to freedom, you chase the freedom that your cartoonish version of yourself says freedom is, such as climbing a mountain or opening an Airbnb in Tuscany or things of that kind. And then once you have them, it's like, ta-da, now I'm free, you see? And you're like, but it's a different circumstance, but why don't I feel free? Like after a while, it's petrified again, right? And so as it turns out, the real place from which freedom stems is in the realization that which you call yourself is not really yourself, and it limits and it petrifies your flow with the inner real self, which is once again, pure conscious awareness, right? Like the ghost within, so to speak, right? And so as I follow my little notes here, so we've touched on this idea of what is real freedom and what is fake freedom. So the pursuit of real freedom then has nothing to do with changing your life circumstances, though that might help give you a bit of a push, but it has to do with pursuing the realization of your true self, so that the egoic self or the fake self that you've been putting out there and became so familiar and enmeshed with, essentially it falls away, not in the sense that you can't function in the world anymore, but you acquire distance from it, and so it no longer holds you and no longer binds you. So long as you believe that you are your personality and your hopes, your dreams, your memories, and all these kind of things, you are bound by that construct, by that scaffolding, right? It was a scaffolding that helped you function in the world, but now it binds you because there are an infinite number of things that you can't do so long as you believe that you are that personality. And so the sense of freedom is never really there. You are bound, you are emotionally and logically bound by this shell. and you feel it, right? And you become numb to it. If you are, I mean, I'm kind of a sensitive guy, so I can't numb myself. But people, they'll become just totally numb to it and just carry on as if nothing's ever happened. But something in you is now dormant to the point of being almost dead, and then the sense of freedom is certainly not there. Now, so the other interesting thing is we said that the sense of freedom and the sense of security were opposed to one another. Now, this is not true, as a matter of fact. So what is opposed is real freedom versus the fake sense of completion and security that you give yourself. Because the ego gives you a sense of, I know where I'm going and I know who I am, but it's fake. Okay? It is a story that you're telling yourself, essentially. The matter, and so it gives you a false sense of completion, for which you sacrifice your real sense of freedom and your real sense of completion, which are the same thing. They're not opposed to one another. Okay, now, so here comes the thing, right? So then you go on a quest for what you could call enlightenment or becoming fully realized, and that quest starts out as what you could say is like a hero's journey. And this is a new idea that has dawned on me, is that in the beginning journeys of the hero's quest, when you go out to slay your fears and all that kind of stuff, you think of yourself as that hero who's going out there, and you're gonna slay that dragon of all your fears, and you're gonna break free, right? You're gonna experience this sense of completion and freedom, but even that notion of the hero's journey is informed by the false sense of self that you think you are, right? So as you start to observe your egoic construct, and all these fears and things that you thought were you start to be observed objectively for what they are, that construct doesn't become destroyed, so the shell of the ego doesn't vanish, but it becomes transparent to you. So it becomes like a membrane. So your cell, so the cell of you is now still held together by that construct, but now it's permeable. So you can step out of that whenever you feel like, and expand, really be free, right? And so it keeps expanding on and on. And as it does, you come to realize that for that shell to become truly permeable and to truly expand, you need to ultimately let go of, that hero's quest needs to slay the ultimate dragon, the ultimate fear in the very core of your heart, which you are terrified of, Um, because if you think about it, your ultimate fear is letting go of the very idea that there is a hero to begin with. That's the ultimate dragon. That's the one that, you're like, I hereby the hero, I'm going to slay all the dragons. But then there's one less dragon left to slay, the real one, the very real one, the core of all your fears, the core of all your sense of incompletion and lack of freedom is the idea that you are a hero in a journey. They're in fact, that very idea of the hero is part of the membrane, is part of the shell, is part of the chains or the of the scaffolding of the ego, which needs to be let go of. And now we talk about slaying the dragon and all that kind of stuff. I even have a book somewhere in there that says the ego is the enemy. That's not true. That membrane is there for a reason. You need to hold life together to be functional in the world. It's I think that's a very handy thing. So we don't no longer talk about slaying the dragon. All you need is to have a really good look at it, with a lot of focus and equanimity and presence, and it just vanishes. But that's the scariest dragon to look into because, for better or worse, you are enamored with the sense of with your sense of self, with your sense of personality, and even enamored with the idea that you're getting rid of the self, right? Like the very idea that you are this hero that is on a quest or a journey to get rid of his fears, whereas the real dragon is the fact that there is no hero in the journey, that there's just process happening, right? There's conscious awareness, which is like an eternal light or flame from within, generating a reality and perceiving it at the same time. And well, that's it. That's that, right? Now, it's interesting because the reason that dragon is so scary, I think, is that it presents you with utter loneliness and utter boredom, almost combined. I've made a clip before about how loneliness and boredom are the royal gateway into enlightenment, but it's damn scary because, well, if there's no hero and there's no journey, then what is there, and what's your reason to live, right? Like it's that kind of existential void is damn scary, right? That you do anything to avoid that, anything, right? Like you'll munch on chocolate, you'll have serial partners, you'll be a workaholic, or you'll be uber social, or a gym bunny. You'll do whatever you have to do to avoid that sense of I don't know who I am and I don't know where I'm going. And yet those are what enlightenment and self-realization are truly made of, right? Like that's the dragon. That's the dragon is going, you know what? I actually really, really don't know who I am. And I really, really don't know where I'm going. And I'm okay with it, right? As opposed to going, I'll make plans. My three, I see myself here in 3 years, and I am this and I am that. It's like, you gotta let go of all of that. And if you are, if you are true to yourself, you realize that's very scary, because that's the void, right? And so I remember this phrase, and God, I wish I could remember. I should have Googled up front where it came from, but there's this phrase of abandon all hope, ye who cross through these gates, or something to that notion. And when you hear that, you go like, ooh, abandon all hope. That means like, whoa, it's like the that the black pearl in the Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, once you go there, you go to the depths of the abyss and it's all over. There's no reason to live. All hope has been abandoned. And yet the hope that you're abandoning is the fake hope that your personality comes up with. So you let go of that. You let go of hope, and the moment hope is gone, fear disappears at the same time. And you just are. You just are. And so that's the dragon, and that's the freedom, right? But behind this dropping of fake hopes and dreams lies the ability to sit perfectly at peace. And that is true freedom. It can happen in the comfort of your own living room. And it doesn't need to happen in the top of a mountain. Or as the saying goes, the only Zen you find at the top of a mountain is the one that you bring with you. So whether you have a career in banking or whether you are already a monk somewhere out there in the Himalayas or whatever, it is the dropping of the very dropping of the hope that the quest will deliver something. Is the very dropping of knowing of the fake sense of self that the story that you tell yourself you are and where you say you're going gives you, that so enlightenment and real freedom and the real sense of freedom and completion combined in one are right behind the abandonment of the story of the self as the hero and the story of the journey as the place towards which you're going. So so that's that essentially, right? That is it. It is that in your ability to sit in utter boredom and loneliness, only then you are in pristine and in the sharp edge of the clear now of the fresh and alive reality that is in that very moment. And when you are sitting there, you are nothing. It's not like you don't exist. What I mean to say is you are no thing, as in you are not a mental construct anymore. And you're going nowhere. I mean, you're just there. You are just there. So there you have it. So that's my take on what real freedom actually is, why it is so hard to get, why it is not opposed to the utter sense of security, because real freedom is freedom from the need to be secure in the first place, or from the need to be free for that matter. So freedom and completion are two sides of that one same coin, which you could call full self-realization. And how that egoic construct that we create in order to function in the world eventually becomes a kind of method actor's mask that gets stuck to your face, with which you become enamored, and which is very difficult to drop because it gives you a false sense of completion. It gives you a false sense of who you are, and it gives you a false sense of where you're going. And if you are willing to drop the need to feel complete or free or know who you are or know where you're going, then you got it. And it's a dropping that may have to happen several times for a long time before it becomes embedded in how you roll, so to speak. And in terms of my own practice and where it is at the moment, I've grasped what the Zen guys would call, the tail of the ox, right? Like I can slip into a very right brain or both brain mode. And I can slip very deeply into the now. I can slip very deeply into my body, into presence, into focus, into equanimity, into very nice states of absorption during meditation, and that changes the mind-body system over time. So that dropping of the ego, that permeating the membrane of the ego, and it's a process that makes it become more and more permeable and transparent over time, so that you can choose to go in and out of it, but it still holds your integrity as a person who can function correctly in the world. So I hope that helps. I hope it gives some food for thought. If you haven't watched The Neverending Story, go watch it after this clip, because I think it's a very cool movie that presents this journey in a very graphical way, in a sort of novel type of way. And I'll be back with more. Cheers.